Hello and welcome all. I am your host Caesar, and this is Transformers Energon class Divebomb. So we would take a look at the official packaging if I still had it, but unfortunately I don't. So we'll just skip right into the alt mode here for Divebomb himself. And as we can see, he's a kind of Cybertronian looking bird of sorts. Perhaps a bird of prey, because it looks very hawk-like, which is really rather cool. And so he has a lot of nice color on him. Most of him is done in this white, and then kind of like this bronzish sort of tan color here on the ends here, the end of the wings, as well as these vents in here, and then some black with some yellow highlights. And then a lot of the figure has this nice translucent energon green color to it, which looks really rather cool. And of course he has red eyes right there, denoting that he is a Decepticon, as most Decepticons tend to have the red eyes. And it looks really rather cool and menacing as the bird's just flying at you with its jaw open with the red eyes. And then down here we can see more of the black and kind of tan bronze colored plastic there. Down on the feet here. And then a little bit of purple in the back here. And his tail is just this little fin here on the back, which a very small tail, but I think otherwise it's a very effective looking bird mode, which is really rather cool. So the bird does have articulation, as birds should. So the wings, they can move a little bit, mostly just on this hinge here. You can move it up and down. You can kind of tilt it and get a little backwards and forwards, but not much. The wings, you could collapse the wings and have it folded up, so that way like the bird's just sitting there with his wings folded back. Otherwise they are meant to be displayed outwards like this. The head does not have any movement. There is a joint back there for the robot mode, but unfortunately due to the way that it transforms, the head just does not move. You get a little bit of wiggle up and down side to side, but nothing more than that. And then as far as the legs go, you have a ball joint in here, so that way the legs can pivot, and then they can also rock back and forth on that joint. And then there's a hinge right in here, so that way they can move forward and backwards like so, and then the hinge down here, so that way you can kind of close the feet and sort of have it like swooping and grabbing a fish or something from the water, or just grabbing at an enemy Autobot. And it does stand very nicely on those legs. The feet are rather small, but they do provide a nice sturdy base, and it's right in the center of mass, so it's fairly well balanced there. So I think that's about it for his bird mode. As for size comparison with the figure from the previous video, here he is with the Energon Optimus Prime. Just the truck itself, so you can get a sense of the size there. And as you can see, he is the wingspan is a bit longer than the truck mode itself, but otherwise, still just about the same width at the base of the body, so fairly decent size there. For the bird, just being an Energon class versus Optimus. So there we have it. As far as the sizes, the wingspan is roughly 9.5 inches, or 8.5 inches, sorry, which is about 21.5 centimeters. And then front to back, he's just about 3.5 or 9 centimeters. So fairly good wingspan there. That's definitely the biggest dimension, and very impressive. It makes it just look really, really cool. And then all the like spiky feathers here, which looks really nice. As for the weight of the figure itself, we'll go ahead and we'll bring our scale in here. And we'll go ahead and set Divebomb on top of it. And Divebomb is just 64 grams, or 2¼ ounces. So a very lightweight figure, definitely not too massive, not really heavy, so it's, you know, very nice just to carry around and stick inside your pocket, you know, and just have a little figure to play with on the go. So I think that's just about it for his bird mode. So we'll go ahead and we'll get him transformed. And to start doing that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to just pull these pieces off of the side there, and we'll just set those aside for now. And so now we just have the bird itself. And to go ahead and start the transformation here, we're just going to pivot the legs back a little bit like so. And then we're going to go ahead and split the bird head. And what's going to happen here is that the bird head is going to come up on this hinge in here, and it's just going to pivot like that. And so we'll do the same on the other side, and that just moves the bird legs with it because it's all attached. And sometimes the wings of the bird do come off, and so, but that's just a simple friction hinge there, so it's really easy to pop that back on. Now what we're going to do is this post is just going to go into that port. So we're just going to go ahead and plug that in there. And there we go. And now we're just going to bring the wings down so that way they can form the robot leg. And so now what we want to do is we want to come back around to the front. We're going to take the wings and we're going to collapse them upwards. And then we're going to take this piece, and this becomes the robot mode foot, and it just folds back like that. And then there you have one leg, and just do the same on the other side, and there you have your second leg. Now as for the arms and the shoulders here, you just kind of want to get them positioned here, and then go ahead and fold the bird feet up. And then you can do whatever you want with them, but you can kind of just tuck them back on the side there, and just leave them hanging from the back side. And then what you want to do next is you want to go ahead and take the arm, bring it down, and then rotate at the elbow, and the half of the bird head becomes the forearm and the hand there. And then just do the same on the other side. Just go ahead and fold the bird feet up rather, and then bring his robot mode arms down, and just have them positioned like so. And last step would be to go ahead and just rotate the head around from the back there. And there we go. Now he is transformed up into his robot mode. And as far as his robot mode goes, I think it's very cool. You know, he has these nice big arms with the hands there, and it definitely doesn't, you know, it definitely makes a clever use of using the bird head, so that way it's not folding up on his chest or just hanging behind. His robot mode actually become his arms, and then the mouth of the bird becomes his hands, which is, you know, very nice use there. And I think the wings folding up to become the robot mode legs here, that works very effectively because of the way that those bird feathers just all fold up inside of the knee joint here, inside of the groove back here. All those just fold up in there, and so it tucks away nicely. And then and in the bird mode, the feet don't look too obtrusive, just sitting on the front of the wings, so then they can just fold down, and he just, you know, that way the, you know, legs fold up pretty well for the robot mode, and it definitely looks really cool. I definitely like the big knee spikes that he has from that. Otherwise, the only downside is the bird mode feet just kind of hanging off of his back here. There's not like a lot you could do with that, but you know, I suppose that you could rotate these somehow and, you know, have that part of the robot mode as well, like he has 4 arms or something. But so taking a look at the details here, as far as his face goes, it has a nice bit of red in there just for the whole face, with the black kind of outlining the helmet there, and then his eyes are just done in silver. As far as his chest goes, that purple becomes apparent on the front of the chest here, and then there's some of that gray there, as well as some nice gold paint in here, and then there's a Decepticon symbol in the middle of his chest. But the Energon star here just goes on the front of his chest there and covers that up. And so you can't really see the Decepticon symbol with the Energon star on his chest. But he does have good molded detail in here, you know, as far as the vents there go. Nice little pieces here on the shoulders and whatnot. Then going down the legs, a little bit more of that gold paint here. And then basically all the detail that you get from the wings in the bird mode carries over here. The vents are just on the back of his leg. Unfortunately, the painted part becomes on the inside, so the outside here isn't actually painted. And then all that same, you know, nice black kind of turbine look in there. And then the inside leg just has that same detail. It's the same on both sides. And then up the back, definitely not a lot of junk hanging off of him. Again, just the bird legs, but you know, you can overlook that pretty easily. Definitely doesn't obstruct from the profile too much. Just kind of makes him look like he's a little bit wider back there. So there we have him in his robot mode. And so as far as the articulation goes for robot mode, his head can do a full 360 because it's just on that swivel there. The arms, they can also do a full 360 all the way around, and then they go in and out on this joint here. The bird legs, of course, you can position those however you'd like behind the robot mode. And then there's a ball joint here, so the elbow has a rotation and a full 90-degree bend there. At the waist, there is no swivel, just due to the way it transforms. Otherwise, you can unhinge that without popping it apart. And you can give him an ab crunch if you'd like. The hips, they're on a ball joint, so they go forward pretty far, they go back pretty far, and then they can go all the way out, so you can do the full splits. And then he has a knee joint right up here, and so you can get up to 90 degrees of bend there at the knee. And then his feet, they can kind of move up a little bit, so you can, you know, get him in a running pose. That's just about it for the articulation. Not a whole lot, but definitely enough there to make use of it and get him into some decent poses. And you know, most of his mass is in his legs, so as long as you get the legs steady, you can get the rest of him into a good pose. So as far as the bits here that we took off of the bird mode, these are actually the accessory that comes with him. These become his weapon, or weapons. If you want, you can just plug the individual halves into his hands, so that way he has like 2 axes or clubs or something. Otherwise, the official configuration for this is to take them, and then there's a peg there, and a port there, and a peg there, and a port there, and you just plug those together like that in the zigzag pattern that we get there. And then this becomes his full weapon, and it's like some sort of axe or boomerang. It's definitely up to your imagination as to what weapon it best resembles. And so you just plug that into his fist there, and then he can hold that. Unfortunately, the arm joints aren't really strong enough to hold it up. If you bend the elbow at a full 90 and you bring it up like that, he can hold it up. But if you have it, you know, if you bend the elbow anymore and it's not, you know, not locked into that 90-degree position, then it tends to have too much weight out here and it just brings his arm down, drooping it. So he can't really hold it up as well, which is a bit unfortunate because it would be really cool to have him holding that up, you know, in a pose for, you know, display on a shelf next to an Autobot that he's fighting. Otherwise, you know, it is a definitely really cool weapon. I like the, you know, the whole zigzag shape that it has. It's definitely very, very clever how it integrates with the bird mode and then combines the pieces together to become this weapon for his robot mode. So there we have him. And as for some comparisons, the only comparison that I really have for him right now is Transformers Energon Optimus Prime. And this is just the base robot mode, not his super mode with all the other stuff. But yeah, he's already bigger in just the base robot mode by himself. Because he is a leader class figure, and then Divebomb here is just the Energon class, which is the smallest class. So he is fairly small there. As for just how small he is, if we go ahead and bring in a tape measure, he stands at just about 4 3/4 inches, which is about 9.5 centimeters there. So fairly short, but due to the way that the wings become the legs, and the wings are just so big in the bird mode, they definitely form a nice long leg for him. So they definitely give the figure they give the figure more height there than if they had just folded up on the back somehow, and then the rest of the robot folded out from inside of the chest cavity or something like that. So definitely very clever engineering, to get him, with a nice tall robot mode there. So I think that's just about it for his robot mode here. So we'll go ahead and we'll transform him back into his bird mode. So the first step is just to remove his weapon, set that aside. You can leave the Energon star on for transformation, as I demonstrated getting him into robot mode, but if you want, you can take that off. And so the first step, just kind of bring the arms back, and we're just going to go ahead and unpeg the waist there and pull it forward. And we're just going to take the feet, bend them forward like that, fold the wing out, so that way all those feathers are displayed. And then you just bring the leg up on that hinge without popping it apart, which does happen fairly frequently on mine, as it is fairly loose, and once it pops apart a few times, it definitely dulls those nubs in there that hold that connection together. And so we just do the same on the other side, just bring that out, bring the foot up, and then just rotate this piece here, and it'll bring all the rest of the feathers out with it. And so there we have the legs. The head, just go ahead and rotate towards the back, so that way you're looking at the back of it with the little tail fin. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take the arms, and they're going to rotate in on this hinge, so they're just going to pull in like so. And just make sure that you have this fin piece on top of the shoulder outwards when you go to robot or bird mode rather. So that way it's sitting on the outside of the bird mode. Otherwise it's going to bind up against this, or it's going to be hanging down here, and the bird leg is going to be stuck in the middle there. So that's how you want that oriented, with just that fin sticking out to the side. And just bring the bird head there, and then bring the foot, and you're just going to want to rotate it around like so, and bring it down, just open up the foot itself. And then we're going to go ahead and do that on the other side. So just make sure that that fin again is on the top of the shoulder, so that way it's on the outside of the bird when it rotates in. So we're going to bring it in like so. And then there's just a couple of pegs there and a couple of ports on the other side to match up. And you just go ahead and peg the head together like so. And just give it a good squeeze so that way it holds together nicely. And then just go ahead and orient the other bird leg so that way he can stand on them. And just bring those wings down. And there you have him back in his bird mode. Of course, if you can get him balanced. And so there we go. And then part of the bird mode is to take the weapon, and just using the pegs on the side of it, just go ahead and plug it into the ports on the side of the head itself, which which works for the storage of the weapon, and kind of also adds an extra dimension to the bird mode itself. Maybe like more feathers or extra wings or something. So there we have him back in his bird mode. As far as Divebomb here goes as a toy, I think it's very cool, it's very playable. The transformation is simple enough, yet it works effectively to make a convincing looking bird mode. and then make a very decent robot mode. You know, and it uses some clever engineering versus some of the other bird type Transformers toys. It actually folds the wings up to have those become the legs, which I think is very cool. And as I said before, I definitely like the aesthetic of the big knee spikes that he has because of it. The bird head splitting in half and becoming the robot arms is also fairly genius there, and definitely a change in engineering, whereas most other bird Transformers have the bird head, you know, becoming the chest or the torso piece, or folding up on the back or something. So definitely changes up the formula a little bit, and you know, I think it works very effectively. I like the way it looks in both modes. As far as I go, it's very aesthetically pleasing. Of course, that the aesthetic that the Energon toys have may not appeal to everybody. The only real downside is the bird legs just kind of hanging off of his back there. But you can kind of overlook that and sort of pretend that they're not there, as most of it is that black plastic that is on the arms, so it kind of blends in. And then the head just kind of sticks out the back of the robot mode, but you turn it upside down. You know, imagine that it's the tail of the bird. So it works decent enough, just having the robot mode head hanging out like so. The only major downside as far as the figure goes, well, there's two of them. The first one is that the weapon is a little too heavy for him to hold. Those joints in his arms and shoulders just aren't quite tight enough to actually hold it up unless you get it in a certain position and have it balanced, you know, more or less. And then the other downside is the waist joint in here. It tends to pop apart fairly easily, you know, which is good because it's not breaking the figure. But of course, if you're trying to transform it, then it can accidentally pop off, and you know, then you're messing with trying to put it back on, and it's kind of inconvenient when you're transforming it. And after it does it a few times, then it makes it easier to do it the next few times because it wears down that joint there, so it makes it more likely to happen. Otherwise, I think it's a great figure. It's nice and solid, definitely playable, definitely really easy to transform, which helps the playability factor a ton. And he looks really good in both modes as far as my opinion is concerned. So I definitely would recommend it for anybody that's a big fan of the Transformers Energon series, or just a Transformers fan in general who likes kind of interesting aesthetics. Really, he's meant for the Energon line. That's kind of where the aesthetic is, and that's where he fits in. But if you just want to get it, you know, separate from the rest of the Energon toys, it's definitely a great figure to have. So, I think that's just about it. Well, this has been a look at Transformers Energon class Divebomb. Links are in the description if you're interested in this item or other videos from me. And so till next time, this has been Caesar, reminding you you're never too old to play. Logging off.